The rain had just begun to fall when the boy stepped through the towering iron gates and into the glow of the mansion's entrance lights, his thin jacket clinging to his small frame, his sneakers soaked through, leaving faint prints on the polished marble floor of a world that clearly did not belong to him. The twins stood just behind him, almost hidden in his shadow, their identical faces pale with uncertainty, their tiny fingers twisted tightly into the fabric of his hoodie as if letting go meant disappearing altogether. Inside, beneath a crystal chandelier that scattered light like fractured stars, the married couple turned in unison at the unexpected sound of the door opening. They had been discussing travel plans. Paris in the spring, perhaps the Amalfi Coast in summer. Their voices calm, measured, accustomed to a life where nothing arrived unannounced. The sight before them silenced everything. A child, barely a teenager, standing with two smaller children in the doorway of their immaculate home. The woman instinctively placed her wineglass down, confusion flickering across her elegant features, while her husband straightened, his posture shifting from relaxed to guarded in a heartbeat. For a moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the steady tapping of rain against the tall windows and the faint hum of distant thunder. Then the boy lifted his chin with a courage that did not match his years and said quietly, "Ma'am, these twins live with me." The words seemed too large for his small mouth, yet they landed with startling clarity in the vast room. The husband frowned slightly, glancing toward the security guard near the corridor, unsure whether this was some mistake. "I'm sorry," he said, not unkindly, but clearly bewildered. The boy swallowed, feeling the twins press closer to him. "Their mother worked here," he continued, his voice steadier now, driven by necessity rather than confidence. "She cleaned your guest house every week. She got sick a few months ago. She couldn't work anymore." Recognition dawned slowly in the woman's eyes. A quiet employee, always punctual, rarely speaking beyond polite greetings. She remembered the faint cough, the tired smile. "She passed away," the boy said, and the words seemed to dim the room. There wasn't anyone else. No family. No one came. The twins stared at the couple silently, their wide eyes reflecting both fear and fragile hope. "And you?" the husband asked carefully. "What does this have to do with you?" The boy hesitated, then reached into his pocket and unfolded a creased letter, edges softened from being handled too many times. "She asked me to look after them. I live in the old apartment building behind your property. I used to help her carry groceries. When she got weaker, I promised." His fingers trembled slightly as he extended the letter forward. "She said if anything happened, I should bring this to you." The woman took it, her hands delicate but suddenly unsteady. As she read the shaky handwriting, her expression shifted from confusion to something deeper. Guilt, sorrow, perhaps even shame. The letter spoke of gratitude for steady work, of knowing the couple were generous to charities, of a desperate hope that if her children were left alone, they might not turn away. The husband read over her shoulder, his jaw tightening as he absorbed the final line. "Please don't let them be separated." Silence thickened between them again, but this time it carried weight. "You're just a boy," he murmured almost to himself. The child standing before him nodded faintly. "I know, but they're just little." One of the twins sniffled softly, clutching a worn stuffed rabbit missing one eye. The woman knelt slowly, bringing herself to their height, her expensive dress pooling around her knees on the cold marble. "What are your names?" she asked gently. Their small voices answered in unison, hesitant but clear. The boy remained standing, shoulders squared, as though bracing for rejection, prepared to gather the twins and walk back into the rain if necessary. He had not come for charity. He had come for a promise. The thunder outside rolled louder, rattling the glass panes, as if urging the couple toward a decision they had never anticipated. In that suspended moment, the grandeur of the mansion felt strangely hollow compared to the quiet bravery in front of them. A child who had stepped into a world of wealth not to ask for himself, but to protect two smaller lives that depended entirely on him. For several long seconds after the twins whispered their names, the only sound in the grand foyer was the rain pressing harder against the windows, as though the storm itself refused to move on without witnessing what would happen next. The boy remained standing, shoulders tense, every muscle prepared for disappointment, while the married couple exchanged a look that carried years of unspoken longing and carefully postponed conversations. They had spent countless evenings discussing the idea of children in abstract terms. Someday, when business slowed down, when the timing felt perfect, when the house no longer felt like a showroom, but perfection had never arrived. Now 3 imperfect, trembling realities stood before them, asking for something far greater than convenience. The husband cleared his throat, the sound breaking the fragile stillness. "Come inside properly," he said at last, gesturing away from the doorway. It was a small sentence, but it shifted the air entirely. The boy hesitated only a fraction before guiding the twins forward, as if afraid the invitation might evaporate. The doors closed behind them with a soft but decisive click, sealing out the storm. A housekeeper hurried to bring towels, kneeling to dry the twins' damp curls, while the woman disappeared briefly and returned with warm blankets that had once been folded away in a guest closet, unused and unnecessary until this moment. The twins accepted the warmth cautiously, their eyes never straying far from the boy, who stood like a quiet guardian beside them. "Have you eaten?" the woman asked gently. The boy shook his head. "They had some bread earlier," he admitted, clearly more concerned for them than himself. Within minutes, the vast dining table that usually hosted crystal centerpieces and formal dinners held bowls of soup, slices of bread, and glasses of milk. The twins climbed onto chairs far too large for their tiny frames, their feet swinging above the polished floor, while the boy remained standing until the husband firmly motioned for him to sit as well. He obeyed slowly, perching on the edge, as though unsure whether comfort was allowed. As they ate, color gradually returned to the twins' faces, and a fragile sense of normalcy crept into the room. The woman watched the boy carefully. "How long have you been taking care of them?" she asked. "Since she went to the hospital," he replied quietly. "I couldn't let them go to strangers." The simplicity of his answer struck deeper than any dramatic plea could have. The husband leaned back in his chair, studying the 3 children not as intruders now, but as lives intertwined by loyalty stronger than blood. He excused himself briefly and stepped into his office, making urgent calls, to a lawyer, to a family friend who worked in child services, his tone firm and resolute. When he returned, something in his expression had shifted from uncertainty to decision. He looked first at his wife, who gave the faintest nod, tears shining but steady in her eyes. Then he faced the boy. "The legal process won't be simple," he began carefully, "but they will not be going anywhere tonight." The boy's breath caught, hope and disbelief colliding in his chest. "They can stay?" he asked, barely above a whisper. The woman stepped closer, placing a gentle hand on one twin's shoulder. "Yes," she said softly, "and you won't be separated from them." The boy blinked rapidly, his brave composure finally cracking as tears slipped down his cheeks, not loud or dramatic, but silent and overwhelming. For the first time in weeks, the weight on his small shoulders seemed to ease. Upstairs, guest rooms were prepared, their untouched beds finally given purpose. The mansion, once echoing with emptiness despite its grandeur, began to feel warmer, fuller, alive in a way it never had before. As the twins drifted to sleep that night, clutching fresh blankets instead of fear, the couple stood in the hallway watching over them, aware that their carefully structured lives had shifted irrevocably. The storm outside faded into a gentle drizzle, and inside those high walls, something far more powerful than wealth had taken root. A promise not born from obligation, but from the quiet courage of a boy who had walked through the rain and refused to let 2 smaller hearts face the world alone.